In this video, we are going over lighting for a moving subject. Now, oftentimes we don't have the luxury of your talent at one point throughout the frame. Oftentimes you're gonna have your talents moving throughout the scene and we need to light that accordingly. Now, when we talk about the topic of lighting a moving subject, it can often be confused with actually tracking your light source with your subject, which isn't necessarily false, but it also isn't necessarily the only way to go about lighting for a moving subject. In this case scenario, in the scene that we are looking at, we have Nate coming in, getting home, coming into his living room, coming into his kitchen, having a bite to eat, and all of these lights are static. They're not moving. They're all placed strategically based off of his blocking. Now let's dive into the strategy of this and the blocking of it. Now, if you aren't familiar with the term blocking, blocking essentially is walking with your talent and finding out where your talent is going to be. You're blocking to grab the cup of noodles, or it's set for them to go to the sink and then walk out here. So essentially we walked through the frame and we decided, well, where is Nate going to be coming? He's going to be coming in here, coming to the sink, coming to the cup of noodles, and then in turn coming into the living room, into the couch. That gives us a little bit of direction as to how we want to light this scene. So in this case, we're shooting at night. It may not look like it, but it's about 10 o'clock at night right now. There's not any light outside. So when we strike all of these lights off, it's completely dark. So we need to fill in these holes in pools of light to where it fills the scene to, one, make it look like daylight, but two, to light our talent when they get to our designated spots, kind of like the highlight milestones, the sink, the cup of noodles, and the couch. Yes, additionally, we will need to light the scene, but a lot of the scene lighting in this particular case is actually coming into play when we strategically add in our key lights for these designated marker points. So going through with the series of lights, I knew that one of the first places that Nate was gonna come to was the sink. Now, I'm lit right here by fake sunlight. So outside this window, we have an aperture 600D Pro shining in through here, and I placed that in a way that, one, it's gonna hit me and play that camera side. You're gonna see a little bit of this sun here, and then also you're gonna create texture and shadow on the wall and really fill in this space. So not only does it fill the kitchen area, but when we come into frame, you can see it come onto me. Bam, now I am lit. So here's our A-point light fixture really acting as a key light here. And yes, it's hard light, but we're at such a far point and it's sunlight. It kind of plays in with everything, and the hard light actually looks really appealing in my opinion here. So we've got the first light here, but the rest of the scene with only the 600D is lacking, to say the least. So I wanted to go through and add another one. So when he comes down into the room, again, it's dark. Well, you could play that it's a dark room up there, but I wanted to keep the continuity of this sunlight coming in this side of the house, which led me to add in this light here, which is a 300D with just a reflector dish, and it's actually going through a plant that's right up here as well to give this little bit of texture that you see lightly on the wall. It's creating texture with his shadow, creating this marker on the wall. It's kind of giving hint to him coming down the stairs before he's in frame based off of his shadow, but then when he comes in, he's lit here on this side as well. You've got it kind of bouncing around this white stairway, so it's acting as just a bunch of ambient bounce, and then it's lighting him additionally. Now, where's he go next? He comes and grabs the cup of noodles and then does a little cool flip, comes over the couch, but it's dark over here. Now, a few different things that I want to talk about here. There are kind of two lights that played into this C point where he is falling into. One, I wanted to keep this hard sunlight continuity coming kind of from this direction of the house. So in this room here was the next light that I added. This is a 600X Pro with a spotlight mount. And I've got that with a cool little gobo in it just to create these little lines of texture as if it's going through a tree branch or something outside, just creating texture. And you can see that it's not only lighting the couch, creating a little bit more sunlight ambience, but when he comes down and sits on the couch, you can see that this sunlight is now casting on his knee, a little bit of his torso, when he leans forward, his face as well. So you're getting this hard light continuity of sunlight coming through pretty much from this whole direction of the house through different windows. Again, it's night, there is nothing out there. It's just actually creeping through a doorway, not even through a window. But Nate himself, he's still very, very dark. So I thought to myself, well, how can I keep this continuity of daylight? We want to keep the same atmosphere and environment. And during daylight, we've often got sunlight that's bouncing in throughout the entire room. It's going to be bouncing off of walls, ambiently spilling into other windows on the other side of the house. So that led me to the next light, which is this here Amaran F22C. And I have that bouncing into this cove of unbleached muslin. Now, you've got this really large source. Let's talk about two different things with this. One, we've got it coming from this upstage direction. So when looking at Nate sitting down, you've got this shadow side here, but then you've got the light coming in and wrapping around very subtly and ambiently. That's the first step step that I took. But now the second step, again, we see how this is a very large source, and there's a reason for doing that. I knew that he's gonna be walking essentially from the kitchen into here. Now, if you have a very large source, it's gonna be spread very ambiently and evenly. So instead of just having a softbox right here, a softbox is gonna be very directional for this one little area in space. And I knew that we're gonna have movement, so by creating this big cove of light coming in here, it's gonna spread not only here, but it's gonna spread here, and it's just gonna subtly fall off into the kitchen, as would ambient daylight. This really does play a huge role in the entire scene lighting as well. It's hard light and you've got dark shadows throughout the entire scene. Yes, you have this hard sunlight, these slashes, but it doesn't necessarily look fantastic until we bring in this key light, which is filling the ambience throughout the entire scene, especially as he gets closer. You can see that it's a very smooth transition. There's nothing that's gonna be very drastic. It's not like I'm just isolated right here with a softbox. You've got that large cove creating an entire really wrap of soft light around this part of the living room. And then there's two little touches that I added that aren't necessarily to light Nate himself, light our subject, but the first one was this practical. We have an aperture B7C bulb in here on tungsten 2700 Kelvin, just as a little pop of light, just a little bit more visual interest, because I'm always trying to create pools of light throughout the entire scene. And I felt that this little corner over here on frame right was lacking a little bit. And I always like to bring in little warm practicals just to add a little bit more visual interest into the scene. So the practical was the first thing that I wanted to add to it. And the second little touch that I added actually brings us outside. So I'm gonna go check out the 600D out there. That's this fake sunlight coming into the kitchen. So now we're looking at the 600D. This is our sunlight going into our kitchen. You see this silver board here, and it's playing actually a very, very important purpose. So if you look at that on the camera, when I add this here, the 600D is bouncing off of the silver and just filling in a little bit more exposure down in there. Yes, it's subtle, but you can see that if there's harsh sunlight coming in, you're gonna have light bouncing around everywhere. So this is our light bouncing around everywhere, just filling in a little bit more exposure on this grassy area. And I just took the duckbill and hung it up here. So this wraps up this video of how to light a moving subject. Again, I wanna stress, we don't always need to have dynamic lights with our subject. Yes, we can do that, and yes, there is a time and place for it. But oftentimes I will create these pools of light for where my subject is really blocked out to be. And then essentially I'll find myself having multiple key lights or multiple pools of light as they pass through. So that concludes this video. I gotta go eat some dinner, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hi, welcome back. How you been? Hope you've been well. I can't hear you, but I'm hoping that you said fantastic. Anywho, I'm Brady. I'll be your host for the afternoon. And if you haven't been here before, well,